In a small town surrounded by rolling hills and quiet streets, there lived a man who seemed like everyone else. He owned a modest garage on the edge of town, where he spent his days fixing cars and helping people with their problems. Everyone knew him as a calm, polite man who rarely raised his voice. He had a quiet strength, though no one knew the full story behind it. To the neighbors and townspeople, he appeared ordinary, even gentle. But there was more to him than anyone could guess. He lived alone in a small, neat house. There were no loud parties or strange activities, nothing to suggest that he had a life full of secrets. Every morning he would wake up early, brew a cup of strong coffee, and check the news while sitting on his porch. He knew most of his neighbors by face and waved to them when he passed by. He never asked for attention and he avoided gossip, preferring to live quietly. He had a routine that many found comforting, simple, and dependable. The townspeople noticed he was polite and careful, always listening before speaking. When someone asked for help, he never hesitated. If a car broke down on the side of the road, he would stop and help, even if it meant he was late for work. He helped elderly neighbors carry groceries and offered rides to people who needed them. He was the kind of person who earned trust naturally without trying. That trust would soon be tested in ways no one could imagine. A small group of people in the town did not like him. They were a local racist clan who had been around for years, believing themselves to be the rulers of their little corner of the world. They watched the town carefully, judging who belonged and who did not. When they noticed the black man living peacefully in their town, they saw it as a challenge to their authority and a stain on their control. They whispered about him in their gatherings, spreading rumors and lies, convincing themselves that he was dangerous simply because of who he was. They had no reason, only prejudice and a desire to intimidate. At first, the man sensed something was off. There were moments when he would catch the way the clan members stared at him, sometimes from a distance, sometimes close by. There were subtle signs he recognized, little gestures and whispers that told him people were plotting against him. Despite knowing danger might be near, he never reacted with anger or fear. He had lived through more than most could imagine, and knew that patience and observation were often the best weapons. He watched, listened, and learned, all while maintaining his ordinary life, appearing harmless to anyone watching. The clan started small, leaving threatening notes on his car, messages that tried to frighten him into leaving the town. They would sometimes follow him from work or stand at corners where they knew he would pass, glaring and muttering insults. The man, however, never panicked. He kept calm, studying their habits and understanding their patterns. He had seen real danger before, situations far more complex and lethal than this, so he treated these threats with caution but never fear. He moved through his daily life with careful attention, aware of every shadow and sound. Neighbors began noticing the tension, sensing the unease in the town. Some approached him worried, but he would simply smile and reassure them. His words were calm, his tone steady, carrying the weight of someone who had been through storms and survived. The townspeople trusted him, believing his composure meant he had everything under control, but they could not guess how much more experience he had than anyone else in town. One evening, as the sun began to set and the sky turned a soft shade of orange, the clan tried something bolder. They approached his house while he was inside, hoping to scare him, maybe even cause harm. They had no idea who they were dealing with. The man who seemed so ordinary and quiet was anything but helpless. As they tried to break in, he calmly assessed the situation, moving with precision and control. He did not shout or panic. Every action he took was measured, designed to protect himself and ensure no one else was hurt. In minutes, he neutralized the threat in a way that left no trace of his true skills. The clan retreated, confused and shaken, unable to understand how their attack had failed so completely. After the incident, he continued his life as if nothing had happened. He fixed cars, helped neighbors, and walked through the streets as if the world was ordinary and safe. He never boasted about what had occurred that night, never flaunted his abilities, and never let fear rule his life. He was a man who understood the value of discretion and the power of quiet strength. Despite his calm, the tension in the town grew. The clan, embarrassed and frustrated, whispered about him more than ever. They started planning, thinking they could outsmart someone who appeared so unassuming. They did not realize that they were dealing with someone who had trained for situations far more dangerous than anything they could imagine. The man knew what was coming. He knew the clan would not stop until they either succeeded or realized they had underestimated him completely. During this time, the man also began preparing quietly. He did not set traps in the typical sense. Instead, he observed, learned, and anticipated. He studied the town, the streets, the houses, and the patterns of the people who threatened him. Every step they took was recorded in his mind. Every whisper and movement became part of a larger understanding. He had mastered the art of being invisible while being completely aware, a skill that had been honed through years of experience in situations that demanded nothing less than perfection. Neighbors noticed a change, not in him, but in how he moved. There was a confidence, a sense of assurance that seemed almost imperceptible yet powerful. Some sensed that he was no ordinary man, though they could not say why. Others simply felt safe around him, though they did not know the reasons. His life remained simple, but beneath that simplicity was a layer of skill, preparation, and readiness that few could even imagine. He spent his nights thinking, planning, and ensuring that no one in the neighborhood would be harmed. He knew that violence should always be a last resort, but he was ready if it became necessary. The man understood the importance of protecting not only himself, but everyone around him. He knew what people feared most was not the presence of the clan but the chaos they could cause if left unchecked. He was ready to prevent that quietly, efficiently, and without unnecessary attention. Life went on in the town, with the sun rising and setting, children playing in the streets, and neighbors living their daily routines. The man continued to live as he always had, fixing cars, helping people, and moving through his days with calm determination. The clan continued to plot, unaware of the full extent of the person they were trying to intimidate. They had no idea that the quiet man they saw was not only strong but trained in ways that gave him an almost unmatched edge. The story of that small town, of the quiet black man and the racist clan, was just beginning. The tension was building, the stage was set, and soon the calm life of the man would meet the dangerous intentions of those who underestimated him. But for now he remained patient, observant, and unshaken. Every day, every hour, every moment was another opportunity to understand his opponents and prepare for what might come. His life seemed ordinary, but beneath the surface was a readiness, a skill, and a strength that would soon become clear. And so, the man continued living quietly among neighbors who trusted him, surrounded by people who had no idea of the battles he had fought, the dangers he had faced, and the life he had led before the small town became his home. His calm demeanor, his quiet strength, and his careful attention to detail made him a man who was underestimated at every turn. Yet, that underestimation was exactly what would give him the advantage when the time came to confront the forces that sought to harm him. Until then, he lived simply, peacefully, and prepared silently, knowing that the world often judged too quickly and misunderstood too often. The days that followed the failed break-in were tense. The black man noticed subtle changes around him. The clan became bolder in some ways, careless in others. They still whispered and plotted, thinking they could outsmart someone they barely knew. They left more threatening messages, scratched symbols into his driveway, and made sure to be seen following him from a distance. But he never let them know that he had already seen everything. He watched quietly, tracking their movements without leaving a trace, just like he had done countless times in the past. At the garage, things continued as normal. Customers came and went, often unaware of the tension building outside. He worked on engines, tires, and brakes with the same skill and care he always had, but his mind was alert. He could tell when someone unusual entered the shop, when a vehicle lingered too long outside, or when the wind carried the wrong sound. Years of experience had taught him to notice the smallest details, and the people who came in every day never imagined the silent awareness he carried with him like armor. One afternoon, as he was finishing work on an old pickup truck, he noticed a vehicle parked across the street. Its engine was off, but the occupants were watching. They were part of the clan. He remained calm, wiping his hands on a rag and stepping outside casually. He looked around as if he had only just noticed them, giving no sign of the understanding he already had. He saw their eyes widen slightly, but they didn't recognize the danger they were really in. They assumed he was unaware. That was their mistake. The clan began trying to provoke him more openly. They would shout slurs from passing cars, block his path at intersections, or spread lies to neighbors hoping to isolate him. But the man handled it all quietly, never reacting violently, never letting his emotions control him. Instead, he observed, learned, and began to understand exactly how far they would go. He noted the patterns of their behavior, their habits, and even the divisions within their small group. It was a game to him, a test of patience, and he was always several steps ahead. Late one night, the clan attempted another escalation. They thought they could surprise him by entering his property while he was home. This time, they expected resistance from an ordinary man, someone who would panic and make mistakes. What they did not know was that he had prepared for moments exactly like this. He had assessed every entrance, every window, and every possible path of intrusion. Motion sensors, subtle lights, and careful observation allowed him to see every movement before they even reached the door. They approached, confident and loud, but he was ready, watching them silently from the shadows. When they tried to force open the door, he moved with precision. Each step he took was deliberate, each action calculated to neutralize the threat without alerting anyone else in the neighborhood. He didn't shout, didn't fight in a chaotic way, but dismantled their plan methodically. The intruders were forced back, confused and disoriented. None of them were seriously harmed, but the encounter left them shaken, unsure how a man they thought ordinary could be so effective. They retreated, muttering threats, vowing to return, but they no longer had the confidence they once did. In the days following the incident, he continued his normal routines. He drove to work, fixed cars, and helped neighbors without a sign of disruption. People around him noticed nothing unusual. Yet he spent hours quietly planning, observing, and making sure that if the clan tried again, he would be ready. Every move they made was anticipated. He even began noting the times when they were most active, the routes they took, and how they communicated. His experience had taught him that patience was just as important as skill. He did not act until the right moment, and that moment would come soon. The neighborhood began to sense a change in the clan as well. They were more cautious, whispered among themselves, and avoided direct confrontation for a time. Some neighbors commented on how strange it was that the clan seemed almost afraid of the quiet man. It was unusual for them to hesitate. They had underestimated him, and the fear of the unknown began to weigh on them. Meanwhile, he remained calm, continuing to appear as an ordinary member of the community, blending in perfectly. He also started noticing other subtle signs that the clan was coordinating with people outside the town. Vehicles parked too far from their homes, phone calls in hushed tones, and unexplained visits from strangers hinted at a larger plan. He tracked everything, carefully noting details that seemed insignificant at first but would later become critical. His mind worked like a map, connecting dots that no one else saw. He prepared for multiple scenarios, imagining what the clan might do next and how he could stop them without unnecessary risk. Despite the threat, he also found moments of quiet peace. He walked through the streets early in the morning, drank coffee on his porch, and exchanged smiles with neighbors. Children waved at him as he passed, unaware of the danger that had lurked around him. Dogs barked and chased after passing cars, and the world seemed calm and ordinary. These moments reminded him why he lived here, why he protected not just himself but the people who trusted him. Every day he balanced vigilance with normal life, never letting fear dominate. One evening, the tension escalated again. The clan tried a coordinated attack, hoping to ambush him while he returned from work. They assumed he would be tired, distracted, and unprepared. But he had already observed their patterns, anticipated the timing, and was ready. Using the knowledge he had quietly gathered, he avoided the ambush entirely. They waited, confused and frustrated, unaware that the person they tried to harm had been ready long before they even started planning. His patience and careful planning gave him an unmatched advantage. He began to understand the deeper psychology of the clan. They were driven by fear, ignorance, and arrogance. They believed they could control everything because they had never met someone who could calmly see their plans and stay ahead. He realized that if he acted too soon, they would scatter and regroup. Instead, he continued to observe, using their own actions to reveal weaknesses. Every careless word they said, every habit they displayed, and every assumption they made was carefully noted. He became a silent shadow, invisible but fully aware. During this time, neighbors started to notice subtle things about him. His calm under pressure, his quiet confidence, and his attentiveness to detail were impossible to miss. Some began to wonder if there was more to him than met the eye. They trusted him even more, feeling safer in his presence, though they did not know the full story. His life remained simple, but the depth of his skill and preparation created a sense of security that people could feel, even if they could not understand why. The clan, growing frustrated, began to argue among themselves. They blamed each other for failures, whispered about mistakes, and questioned their own courage. Their arrogance turned into fear, though they tried to hide it. They had underestimated the quiet man, assuming that appearances told the whole story. Every mistake they made, every moment of hesitation, further revealed the depth of his understanding. He had become not only aware of their plans, but also aware of their psychology, their fears and their limits. As the days turned into weeks, the black man continued his life with patience, careful observation, and quiet preparation. He fixed cars, helped neighbors, and walked the streets as if nothing unusual had happened. The clan continued plotting, thinking they had the upper hand, yet failing to see the reality. They were unaware that each day brought them closer to the consequences of their arrogance. The man's calm, ordinary life masked a skill set and preparation that would soon make a dramatic difference. He knew that sooner or later, the clan would try something extreme. They were desperate, angry, and blind to the reality of the man they confronted, but he remained patient, understanding that timing and strategy were everything. Each day of observation, each note made, and each quiet action was preparing him for the confrontation that was coming. And when it did, the clan would learn finally that the man they thought ordinary was anything but. The quiet life they had tried to disrupt would reveal a force they could not imagine, and the balance of fear and respect would shift in a way no one in town would forget. The quiet tension in the town had grown to a level where it could be felt by anyone paying attention. The black man's patience had not wavered. Each day he continued his routine, fixing cars, helping neighbors, and blending into the town as if nothing unusual was happening. Yet behind the calm facade, he was preparing for something that the clan could not even imagine. He began setting subtle measures around his property, ways to watch, track, and understand every move the clan might take next. Cameras disguised as ordinary objects, carefully positioned lights, and attention to small details gave him a complete picture of the movements around him. The clan, meanwhile, was becoming more reckless. They had grown frustrated after repeated failures and believed that their target would eventually tire, make mistakes, or finally panic. They started communicating more openly, their arrogance blinding them to the reality that the man they tried to intimidate was not just patient, but exceptionally skilled. They discussed strategies, sharing rumors about his background, convinced that he must be ordinary and weak, incapable of defending himself in a serious confrontation. Their arrogance was about to cost them. He noticed the patterns immediately. When they held meetings, they chose secluded areas but repeated the same paths every time. Vehicles were parked in predictable spots. Phone calls and messages followed a rhythm. He mapped it all in his mind, storing every detail. He also observed individuals within the clan, noting their personal strengths and weaknesses. Some were reckless, some timid, some easily provoked. This knowledge gave him an advantage, allowing him to predict how they would behave under stress. It was a skill honed over years of training and real-life experience in situations far more dangerous than the small-town threats he faced now. As the days passed, he began to anticipate their next moves. He set up small measures, not as traps in a violent sense, but as ways to gather information. Motion detectors, subtle alerts, and even seemingly ordinary lights became part of his system. Each device, each placement was invisible to anyone who did not know what to look for. The clan, confident in their plans, did not realize that every step they took was being observed, analyzed, and recorded. One afternoon, while working on a car in the garage, he noticed a figure lingering near the street corner. A member of the clan was watching, perhaps waiting for others, perhaps trying to intimidate him. The man did not react aggressively. Instead, he moved casually, finishing his work, wiping his hands, and stepping outside as if noticing the observer for the first time. He walked down the street, greeted a neighbor, and casually glanced in the direction of the watcher. The clan member felt a brief unease but could not identify the source. The man had made them feel that they were being watched without revealing how. It was a subtle psychological advantage, one that would play a role later. The clan, frustrated by their inability to provoke or corner him, began arguing among themselves. Frustration turned into tension, and their unity started to fracture. They blamed each other for failures and suggested that perhaps their target was luckier than they imagined. Some even expressed fear, whispering that maybe he was not ordinary at all, but those warnings went mostly unheeded. The group remained determined to act, convinced that numbers and intimidation would eventually overcome any individual. They were unaware that they were walking straight into a situation designed to reveal their weaknesses. He continued to refine his understanding of their behavior. He noticed their rhythms, the way they communicated, the small gestures that revealed emotions they tried to hide. This knowledge allowed him to plan responses with extreme precision. He considered multiple scenarios, each step carefully calculated. Unlike the clan, whose actions were impulsive and reactive, he remained deliberate and methodical. Every day of observation brought him closer to a complete understanding of the threats he faced. Despite the tension, he also took time to maintain his normal life. Customers came and went, neighbors waved as they passed, and children played in the streets. To the casual observer, he was just another quiet man living an ordinary life. But his mind was never idle. He balanced vigilance with the ordinary, maintaining appearances while preparing for the inevitable confrontation. This duality was something few could comprehend. It required discipline, patience, and a deep understanding of human behavior. One evening, as the sun set and the streets became quiet, he noticed unusual activity near the edge of town. Several vehicles moved slowly, coordinated, as if carrying out a plan. The clan was attempting to organize a larger, more direct approach. He remained calm, analyzing their positions, noting escape routes and calculating the optimal response. He prepared mentally, visualizing every possible outcome, considering how each member might react. His training and past experiences allowed him to anticipate moves that others could not even imagine. The town remained unaware of the full story. Neighbors continued with their lives, trusting the man who had quietly earned their confidence. The contrast between their perception and the reality of his preparation highlighted just how effective his calm and ordinary demeanor had been. People who had once feared the clan began to feel safer, even though they did not know why. They trusted him without realizing that his preparation was not just about self-defense, but about protecting the entire community. As the night deepened, he monitored the movements of the clan carefully. He knew they were likely planning to act under cover of darkness, thinking that nighttime provided them with an advantage, but he had already mapped every possible approach, noting shadows, obstacles, and escape paths. He was prepared to move with precision, efficiency, and control. The contrast between the clan's reckless confidence and his careful preparation was stark. They believed in chaos and intimidation. He believed in strategy, patience, and understanding. The tension built not just from the threat of physical confrontation, but from the mental and psychological battle. He understood that fear and uncertainty were powerful tools. He used his quiet presence to unsettle the clan without revealing his full capabilities. Every hesitation, every misstep from them reinforced the advantage he already had. He knew that when the confrontation came, the psychological edge would be as important as any physical skill. He also took care to protect innocent people. Neighbors and friends went about their lives unaware of the danger surrounding them. He made sure no one else could be caught in harm's way. His movements, observations, and preparations were designed not only for his own safety but for theirs. The thought of others being endangered fueled his focus, sharpening his planning and strategy. He was determined to prevent harm, even if it meant exercising restraint and patience while the clan plotted openly. The clan's arrogance was growing more dangerous. They began underestimating him even further, believing that their persistence would eventually break his calm. They shared details of their plans openly, confident that no one could stop them. What they did not realize was that each word, each gesture, and each decision was feeding into the man's understanding. He was not just observing. He was learning, calculating, and preparing for the moment when action would be necessary. Days passed with careful observation and quiet preparation. Every encounter, no matter how minor, became part of a larger picture. He noted every vehicle, every phone call, every gathering. His awareness extended to the smallest details, giving him a complete understanding of the clan's operations and mindset. While they believed they controlled the situation, he was several steps ahead, patiently waiting for the right moment to act. The balance of power, unseen and unnoticed by the town, was shifting subtly in his favor. Neighbors continued to see an ordinary man, living an ordinary life, unaware that the calm and quiet demeanor masked an extraordinary skill set. The children played in the streets and people walked their dogs, completely unaware of the danger and the preparation taking place quietly among them. The contrast between perception and reality emphasized the uniqueness of his situation. He was blending into the town while preparing for an inevitable confrontation that would reveal the truth of his capabilities. As part 3 of the story closes, the stage is set for the confrontation that everyone, especially the clan, does not yet fully understand. The man's patience, observation, and preparation have reached a point where he knows the clan's weaknesses, habits, and psychological patterns. He is ready to act, but he continues to wait for the exact moment when strategy, skill, and timing will give him the decisive advantage. The quiet life, the ordinary appearance, and the calm demeanor all mask the readiness and precision of a man trained to handle extreme danger, a man whose true identity remains hidden, waiting to reveal itself when the time is right. The night had a quiet stillness, the kind that made every sound feel louder than it really was. The black man stood by his window, watching the shadows that moved outside. The clan had grown reckless enough to act openly, and tonight was the night they believed they would finally succeed. They thought they were clever, coordinated, and untouchable. They did not know that the man they had underestimated had been preparing for this exact moment, anticipating every move, and ready to respond with precision. As they approached his property, a mix of confidence and anger evident in their movements, he remained calm. He had positioned himself strategically, knowing each approach, each potential obstacle, and each escape route. His military training, honed through years of service in extreme situations, allowed him to remain aware of the smallest details. The shadows, the wind, the faint creak of branches, everything was a signal, and he read them all with clarity. The clan reached the edge of his property and made their first move. They thought that force and surprise would give them an advantage, that the element of intimidation would work in their favor. But the black man had already anticipated the best and worst they could do. He moved silently, using the cover of darkness, his actions precise and controlled. Each motion was designed to neutralize threats without unnecessary risk to himself or to the innocent neighbors nearby. One by one, the clan members encountered unexpected resistance. Doors that should have been easy to open were locked in ways that prevented entry. Motion sensors triggered subtle lights and signals that disoriented the intruders, giving him the information he needed about their positions. Every step they took was a miscalculation because he had foreseen their approach. His awareness turned their confidence into confusion, and confusion into fear. They were no longer in control. He did not act with anger. There was no rage, no reckless violence. Each move was deliberate, calculated, and efficient. He guided the clan into situations where they could be contained without physical harm to anyone beyond their own mistakes. A misplaced step here, a wrong turn there, and he was already adapting. It was a careful balance of strategy and timing, a skill that only someone with his training could manage in the chaos of an unexpected confrontation. As the night progressed, the tension escalated. The clan began to realize that their intimidation tactics were failing. Their confidence started to crumble. Some members tried to retreat. Others attempted to regroup and create a new plan, but every movement had already been anticipated. The black man maintained control without ever revealing his full capabilities. His presence was quiet, almost invisible, yet it was absolute. The neighborhood remained safe, unaware of the near disaster that had almost been brought upon them by the clan. In the middle of the encounter, a few members tried direct confrontation. They charged forward, hoping to overpower someone they thought ordinary. The man used their own momentum and mistakes against them. Every aggressive move was countered, not with brute force, but with precision, redirection, and strategy. They fell into his traps without realizing they were traps at all, simply miscalculating because they did not understand the depth of his experience. By now, fear had fully set in among the clan. The realization hit slowly, then all at once. They had underestimated him in every way. The man they had tried to harm was not just capable of defending himself. He was capable of controlling the situation entirely, turning their confidence against them. The balance of power had shifted completely. Their numbers, their threats, and their arrogance were meaningless against someone who understood both strategy and human behavior so deeply. The black man made sure no one outside his property would be endangered. He guided the clan's movements, blocked escape routes, and ensured that the confrontation would end without harming innocent bystanders. Each decision was deliberate, protecting both his safety and the safety of those around him. The clan's fear grew as they realized the extent of their miscalculation. They were trapped in a situation they had created, unable to act without risking themselves, and completely unaware of the intelligence and preparation that had led to this moment. When the authorities arrived, alerted by neighbors who had noticed unusual activity, the scene had already been contained. The clan members were disoriented, confused, and fearful. They could not understand how their plan had failed so completely. The black man met the authorities calmly, providing information without revealing unnecessary details about his skills or training. The clan members were taken into custody, still processing the reality that the man they had sought to harm had been a far more formidable opponent than they had ever imagined. In the aftermath, the town slowly returned to normal. The black man continued his life as before, fixing cars, helping neighbors, and walking through the streets with the same quiet confidence. No one outside of those directly involved knew the full extent of what had occurred that night. The clan had been neutralized, their threat ended, but the impact of the confrontation left a lasting impression on those who had observed it from a distance. Neighbors began to see him in a new light. There was a quiet respect, a subtle acknowledgement of his courage and capability. People felt safer, though they did not fully understand why. The black man continued to maintain his ordinary life, blending into the community, yet now with the awareness that his presence had been crucial in protecting the neighborhood. His actions had ensured that no one innocent was harmed, and his skill had prevented a potentially deadly confrontation from escalating further. Even in the quiet moments after the confrontation, he remained vigilant. He knew that appearances could be deceiving, that people often underestimated the true nature of others. He maintained his routines, but with a deeper understanding of human behavior and the importance of preparation. The encounter with the clan reinforced lessons he had learned in the past. Patience, observation, strategy, and restraint were far more powerful than aggression and chaos. The clan, now fully aware of their failure, had no choice but to face the consequences. Their arrogance and prejudice had led them into a situation they could not control. The man they had sought to harm had turned their plans against them, demonstrating skill, intelligence, and courage that left a permanent mark on the town. While they would try to recover their pride, the reality of that night would remain a lesson they could never forget. For the black man, life returned to a semblance of normalcy, but with a quiet satisfaction. He had defended not only himself but the community that had trusted him. The encounter had been handled without unnecessary violence, with precision and control that few could comprehend. He continued to live among his neighbors, maintaining the calm, ordinary presence that had allowed him to blend in while remaining fully aware of the dangers around him. His identity as a Delta Force commander remained a secret to the town. Only he knew the full extent of the preparation, the anticipation, and the skills that had allowed him to neutralize the threat effectively. The neighborhood felt safe, the clan had been defeated, and the quiet man continued to live his life as he always had. Every day was a balance of normal routines and the constant vigilance that came from knowing the truth about the world and the people in it. The story of that night would never be fully known to the town, but its impact was undeniable. People sensed the quiet strength, the confidence, and the protection that had surrounded them without their awareness. The black man had faced a serious threat, a group motivated by hate and arrogance, and had emerged victorious, preserving the safety of the community without letting fear or anger dictate his actions. As the nights went by, he continued to observe quietly, prepared for any potential future threats. His life remained simple on the surface, but underneath he carried the awareness, skills, and readiness of someone trained for extreme situations. The events with the clan had reinforced the importance of patience, planning, and understanding, and he lived each day quietly, blending ordinary life with extraordinary preparedness. The town went about its life oblivious to the full story, while the man who had protected them continued to watch, wait, and remain ready for whatever might come next. The town slowly returned to its quiet rhythm. The streets were calm, children played, and the usual chatter of neighbors resumed. Life seemed normal again, but the events of the recent days had left an invisible mark. Those who had glimpsed parts of the confrontation could feel it, though most did not understand the full story. The black man returned to his routine, fixing cars, helping neighbors, and walking through the streets with the same quiet presence. To everyone else, he was still the ordinary, polite man they had always known. But the weight of what had happened, and the vigilance he carried, remained with him. Neighbors began noticing subtle changes in their environment. The clan no longer moved with confidence. They were hesitant, careful, and some had even left town. People whispered about what had happened, sharing pieces of what they had seen, but no one could fully explain it. The man had become a silent protector, someone who ensured safety without drawing attention. His presence alone had shifted the balance in the town, creating a sense of security that had previously been absent. The black man continued to engage with the community as he always had. He fixed cars for anyone who needed help, offered advice, and remained approachable. People trusted him, not just because of what they had seen, but because of the calm strength he exuded. Children waved as he passed, neighbors greeted him with smiles, and life went on in a peaceful rhythm. Yet beneath the surface, he remained aware of everything, ready to respond if any threat arose again. The clan's defeat had sent a message without words. Those who had witnessed parts of the events understood that appearances could be deceiving. The ordinary man they had underestimated was anything but ordinary. The truth of his identity, though not fully known to the town, had become evident in the results. The members of the clan who remained were wary, knowing that further attempts at intimidation would be met with intelligence, skill, and unwavering vigilance. The balance of fear and respect had shifted decisively. For the black man, the experience reinforced lessons learned over a lifetime. Patience, observation, and preparation were more powerful than aggression and chaos. He understood human behavior, the psychology of fear and arrogance, and the importance of remaining calm in the face of provocation. These principles had guided him through life and had allowed him to navigate an extraordinary situation without unnecessary violence. His actions had protected the community and ensured that the conflict ended without harm to anyone innocent. He also took time to reflect on the community he had chosen to be part of. The people he helped, the streets he walked, and the lives he touched were all part of a network that mattered. He had ensured their safety not out of pride, but out of a sense of responsibility. Every action he had taken was guided by the principle that true strength includes protecting those who cannot protect themselves. The neighborhood now benefited from a sense of security that would continue even after the immediate threat had passed. As days turned into weeks, the man continued to live quietly, blending into the ordinary life of the town. He remained approachable, kind, and helpful, but his awareness never waned. He knew that life could change in an instant, that danger could emerge in unexpected ways, and that vigilance was a continuous responsibility. His routine, though simple on the surface, was underscored by the readiness and skill that had once saved him and the town from serious harm. The community began to see him in a new light, even if they did not know the full extent of his actions. People sensed his calm confidence and the safety it implied. Conversations about him included respect, gratitude, and quiet admiration. His ability to remain humble while protecting others became part of his character in the eyes of the neighbors. They knew he was capable, but the depth of his training and experience remained a mystery, preserved behind a curtain of everyday life. He also began helping the town in subtle ways beyond his previous efforts. He advised on safety measures, shared knowledge about observation and awareness, and encouraged neighbors to look out for one another. The experience with the clan had taught him the importance of not just individual readiness but community resilience. He understood that true security was not just about skill, but about knowledge, cooperation, and awareness. His quiet guidance strengthened the town in ways that would last far beyond the immediate threat. Though the clan had been defeated, he remained vigilant. The lessons learned in that confrontation stayed with him. He observed, noted, and prepared without causing alarm. His presence was a constant, quiet reassurance. He knew that complacency could be dangerous, and he continued to embody the principles that had guided him through life: patience, discipline, understanding, and the protection of those around him. The story of what had happened, though not fully known to the public, became part of the fabric of the town in subtle ways. People respected the black man, felt safer, and trusted more easily. His calm and ordinary demeanor, combined with the hidden depth of his capabilities, created a unique sense of security that would influence the community for years. Children grew up playing in the streets. Neighbors went about their lives, and the town thrived quietly, unaware of the extraordinary skill and courage that had kept them safe. For the man himself, life continued in a balance between the ordinary and the extraordinary. He maintained his routines, engaged with the community, and continued to live simply. Yet he carried with him the knowledge of what had occurred, the skills that had protected him, and the understanding that true strength often remains unseen. The experience with the clan was a reminder that appearances could be deceiving, and that quiet, deliberate action could make the greatest difference. As time passed, the town became safer, stronger, and more connected. The black man's presence continued to be a stabilizing force. He had demonstrated courage, intelligence, and restraint, ensuring that the neighborhood remained unharmed while neutralizing a dangerous threat. His life remained humble, his actions discreet, but his impact undeniable. The community, though unaware of the full story, benefited from the vigilance and skill of someone who had chosen to live among them quietly, ready for whatever challenges might arise. Ultimately, the black man returned fully to his ordinary life, yet he carried the extraordinary within him. His calm, humility, and vigilance had changed the town in ways no one could articulate. The clan had been defeated, the community was safe, and life went on. But the lessons remained. Strength comes in quiet forms, courage is often unseen, and vigilance is a responsibility that protects not just oneself, but those around them. The man, the quiet protector, continued to live among the people, respected and trusted, a silent guardian whose story would be remembered in actions, if not in words.